Hello there, I'm Norzie and you're watching Nightline, the top stories. Finance Ministry to expedite BPN 2.0 payments starting January 21st. And Health Ministry expects to control Malaysia's COVID-19 infection rate in 12 weeks. The Finance Ministry will expedite the Bantuan Prihatin Nasional Phase 2 or BPN 2.0 payments, totaling 2.38 billion ringgit to over 11 million eligible recipients. Its Minister, Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz, in a statement on Wednesday, said payments to the B40 and M40 groups would be credited directly into their bank accounts starting January 21st and 25th, respectively. According to Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul, the payments will involve 10.6 million BPN recipients and about 460,000 new recipients who were approved during the application and appeal period from October 15th to November 15th last year. Those without bank accounts would be able to receive payments at Bank Simpanan Nasional branches from January 25th onwards, subject to the bank's standard operating procedure guidelines. As for recipients without bank accounts in Sabah and Sarawak, he said payments would be made from early February to April 1st at locations to be announced at the end of this month. Approvals can be checked starting January 15th on the official portal at bpn.hasil.gov.my. BPN 2.0 is part of the 10 billion ringgit Prihatin Supplementary Initiative Package announced by Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin on September 23rd last year to provide targeted assistance for Malaysians who are financially affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. To date, 7.18 billion ringgit had been paid or allocated to recipients, comprising 5.82 million unmarried individuals and 5.24 million households. For the second phase of the cash aid, each recipient under the B40 household group would receive 300 ringgit, while those who are single would each receive 150 ringgit. For the M40 category, households would each get 200 ringgit, while unmarried individuals would receive 100 ringgit each. The Health Ministry expects to control Malaysia's COVID-19 infection rate in 12 weeks now that the Movement Control Order, MCO, has been reintroduced. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said it was still too early to see the effects of the MCO, but insisted that it was the right move to help Malaysia suppress the growth of COVID-19 infections.
Kita harap kita dapat menurunkan, iaitu melengkokkan graf semula, iaitu jangkaan kita ialah mungkin dalam tempoh 12 minggu kita akan lihat, tetapi kita akan melaksanakan 2 minggu dulu, yang kita akan lihat perkembangan 2 minggu, dan kalau perlu atau tidak kita bergantung pada data-data, dan jangkaan kita mungkin dalam bulan 5 kita mungkin boleh melandaikan kes-kes atau COVID-19 dalam negara kita.
And to meet the increasing number of COVID-19 patients in government hospitals, the Health Ministry is set to meet private hospitals on Thursday to see how best such hospitals can assist the Health Ministry to cope with the current demand.
And certainly you have seen the figures, ICU beds as well as the ventilated patient has increased double if you compare to last month. So we still have the capacity in our hospitals like Sungai Buloh. At the moment we are running at ICU beds, 60 beds. But more importantly is that we need more staff to open up more space. So we have the capacity, but we are short of manpower. So we need to look into how we can increase our manpower. So in terms of positions, JPA is helping us to offer more posts to nurses and etc. So I think we are in a process to recruit more manpower to our system. Other hospitals in Klang Valley, they are also taking in COVID patients, but The concern that we have is once you take in COVID patient, then the non-COVID patient will be neglected in that sense. So we fear that will happen. So now I think with the new MCO as well as the emergency order, we can actually work with the private hospital to look into COVID and non-COVID private hospitals. So this is where we are. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the private hospitals, and then we will try to see how best we can accommodate. So we need to accommodate non-COVID, for example.
Meanwhile, the nation on Wednesday recorded 2,985 new COVID-19 cases, with those in the intensive care unit nearing the 200 mark. Of the new cases, only 2 were imported cases. Selangor topped the state with the highest number of daily new cases, followed by Johor, Sabah and Kuala Lumpur. 4 new deaths were reported, bringing the death toll to 563. The youngest patient who succumbed to the pandemic for the day was a 19-year-old female in Sabah. The remaining 3 were aged between 62 and 77. Over in the intensive care unit, 197 patients were receiving treatment, with 79 of them requiring respiratory assistance. The Health Ministry also reported 11 new clusters, 3 in Johor, 2 each in Selangor and Kuala Lumpur, and 1 each in Kedah, Kelantan, Negeri Sembilan and Melaka. The main treatment centre for COVID-19 cases in the Klang Valley, the Sungai Buloh Hospital, today revealed that it has been opening up new intensive care units, ICU, every week. The move follows the recent spike in daily infections in the country. The head of the hospital's infectious diseases department, Dr. Suresh Kumar, said the Sungai Buloh Hospital had recently seen an increase from 2.76% to 15.49% in Category 4 and 5 patients requiring respiratory assistance. Category 4 patients are symptomatic with lung infection and need oxygen supplementation, while those in Category 5, the highest category, are critical patients with multiple organ complications. Disclosing the details at a webinar on Wednesday, he said the hospital's ICU rates are exponentially going up compared with what is seen in normal times.
The proportion of patients who require Category 4 and Category 5 diseases requiring oxygen or ventilation has exponentially gone up. It's 15% required now. So what it means in real terms is every week now I have to open a new ward, a 28-bedded ward, to cater to these oxygenated patients. And so we started with 1 ward, now we have 8 wards, and we are now moving on to every week we'll have to open up 1 new ward can manage for Category 4 and Category 5 patients.
Dr. Suresh gave his assurance the hospital had not turned away any COVID-19 cases, but admitted there had been delays in treating and moving patients during the last 2 weeks due to a lack of manpower. Employers have been told to provide quarantine centres for their foreign workers and have begun treating Category 1 and 2 patients with no symptoms or with mild symptoms at home. Such move, according to Dr. Suresh, is not enough to help the overwhelmed healthcare system, including the frontliners at hospitals handling COVID-19 patients.
Majority of them are actually women that manage it. Many of them require to be quarantined because of infections, and we realize that because of the PPEs, we need more staff per patient to manage them. And our death rates are actually going up. And as you can see here, as of 10th of Jan, we already have 80 deaths due to COVID-19, and that's the reason why we think.
He added that the Health Ministry was reaching out to private hospitals and general practitioners to discuss ways in which they could assist in fighting against COVID-19. Day 1 of the second Movement Control Order, MCO, saw Kuala Lumpur's usually bustling streets almost empty of people and quiet, with very light traffic heading to and from the city. Although not all economic activities were shut down, it was estimated that there was over 60% reduction of vehicles in the capital on Wednesday. Checks by our crew at several popular landmarks and busy spots in Kuala Lumpur showed the opposite, with only a handful of people seen walking around the city's pathways. from Masjid Negara to Dataran Merdeka, the number of cars plying along the roads was very minimal. Shopping hotspots like Jalan Tuanku Abdul Rahman and even the Bukit Bintang Golden Triangle seemed almost deserted as non-essential businesses and premises were not allowed to operate. Although public transportation are still operational, very few were seen alighting from the vehicles at various stops around the capital. While some are seen continuing their daily routine in the city, most have chosen to stay home to adhere to the MCO. Many also understood that the MCO 2.0 was needed to flatten the COVID-19 pandemic curve, which was starting to overwhelm the country's healthcare services and frontliners. On Monday, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin announced that the MCO is set to run until January 26, involving the states of Selangor, Pulau Pinang, Malacca, Johor, Sabah and all 3 federal territories. Childcare centres registered with the Social Welfare Department or JKM are allowed to operate during the 2-week MCO enforced in 5 states and federal territories. The Women, Family and Community Development Ministry said childcare centres in states placed under the Conditional Movement Control Order CMCO and Recovery Movement Control Order RMCO are also allowed to operate. In a statement on Wednesday, the ministry said the permission to operate during the MCO, CMCO and RMCO period was in accordance with the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act. Childcare centre operators who wish to operate during the period must inform JKM prior to resuming operations, while operators at government premises must apply for permission from the respective ministry or agency. All the childcare centres are also required to comply with the COVID-19 Standard Operating Procedures or SOP as issued by the Ministry and approved by the National Security Council. The Ministry will also enhance its monitoring on registered childcare centres operating during this period to ensure full compliance. However, the permission to operate will become void should there be new directives from the authorities. Deputy Communications and Multimedia Minister Datuk Zahidi Zainul Abidin has been confirmed positive for COVID-19 based on test results received this morning. He is the first Deputy Minister and 4th member of Cabinet to test positive for the virus within a week. A statement issued by his office today said Datuk Zahidi was in stable condition and also issued an apology on the matter. The Deputy Minister underwent COVID-19 screening test on returning to Kuala Lumpur from Pulau Pinang on Monday. He was taken to Sungai Buloh Hospital for further treatment in accordance with guidelines set by the Health Ministry. Previously, Datuk Zahidi took a COVID-19 test on December 25th last year, which had turned out negative. This came after it was reported recently that 3 cabinet members have tested positive for COVID-19. They are Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Economy, Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad, Women, Family and Community Development Minister, Datuk Sri Rina Harun and Home Minister, Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainuddin. The flood situation in Sabah and Sarawak has worsened with an increase in the number of evacuees, while the opposite situation is reported in Johor, Pahang and Kelantan on Tuesday. In Sabah, the number of flood evacuees has increased to 1,115 people as at 10 p.m, with all of them housed in 9 temporary relief centres (PPS) in 4 districts, namely Kota Marudu, Pitas, Beaufort and Beluran. In Sarawak, the number of residents evacuated to PPS has increased to 827 people from 217 families in 11 relief centres. Meanwhile, the Malaysian Meteorological Department forecasts rain and thunderstorms to continue to hit Sarawak and Sabah until January 19th. In Johor, the weather conditions have improved, leaving 35 centres still operating as at 10 p.m. The number of people affected by floods stood at 3,276, with Kota Tinggi remaining as the district with the highest number of evacuees at 2,093 people. In Pahang, the number of flood victims dropped to 11,425 people, who are still accommodated at 126 PPS, compared with 16,292 people recorded on Tuesday morning. And finally, in Kelantan, the number of flood victims involving the Pasir Mas district has dropped to only 32 people compared with 84 reported earlier. All the victims are housed at PPS at SK Tok De, Pasir Mas.
The insurance industry. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And is flood included as a peril in your insurance policy? These and more on Money Matters with me, Timina Cowstreet, this Saturday at 5 p.m. on TV3.
Private developer Eco World Development Group Berhad has decided not to pursue the proposed merger with government-linked property developer UEM Sunrise Berhad. Eco World Chairman Tan Sri Liew Kee Sin said the decision was made after evaluating the proposal with its business plans while considering the current business environment and lockdown re-implementation. The property group has set a sales target of 2.875 billion ringgit for 2021, which is 25% higher than the actual 2.3 billion ringgit sales recorded in 2020. In October 2020, UEM Sunrise received a letter of proposal from UEM Group Berhad for a merger with Eco World through an exchange of shares and warrants. Eco World was to have been subsequently delisted from Bursa Malaysia. The merger, if realised, would have resulted in one of Malaysia's largest real estate companies by market value. After this break, police seize drugs worth 4.3 million ringgit in two separate raids. Stay tuned. An ex-convict with 43 previous records related to crime and drugs was among the earliest individuals arrested on the first day of the Movement Control Order (MCO) in Pulau Pinang early on Wednesday. He and his friend were arrested for violating the cross-district ban solely on the pretext of wanting to send food from Seberang Perai to parts of the island.
Didapati pemandu kenderaan tersebut mempunyai 43 kesalahan lampau, ada mempunyai rekod termasuk rekod jenayah dan juga rekod narkotik, manakala penumpang dalam kenderaan tersebut mempunyai 19 kesalahan lampau. Walaupun pemeriksaan lanjut dibuat dan tidak ada barang yang salah ataupun dadah di dalam kenderaan tersebut, pemeriksaan ataupun siasatan lanjut akan dibuat oleh IPD Barat Daya dengan membuat ujian air kencing.
Superintendent A. Balagan said the Proton Wira car used by the two individuals was seized for inspection at a roadblock in Batu Maung at about 1 a.m. When asked, the man who lives in Batu Kawan in Seberang Perai Selatan gave the excuse of having to deliver delicacies in the Southwest District, even though it was a trip across the prohibited district in Pulau Pinang, which is under the MCO. Probe revealed that the 34-year-old had just been released from prison in September last year. The Proton Wira car they were travelling in did not have a legitimate road tax, with the one used borrowed from a friend. The two were then taken to the police station for documentation. Police have seized various types of drugs worth 4.3 million ringgit following the arrest of 3 men in two separate raids in Kuala Lumpur and Selangor. City Police Chief Datuk Saiful Azli Kamarudin said on Wednesday both raids were conducted in Kepung and Sri Kembangan on Friday and Saturday, respectively. In the first operation at 4:30 p.m. on January 8th, a team from the Sentul Police Headquarters nabbed a 24-year-old local man and seized 1.03 kilograms of methamphetamine and 1,155 ecstasy pills, as well as a Toyota Vios and 400 ringgit cash. Upon questioning of the suspect, police detained 2 other local men, both aged 20 and believed to be his accomplices, in Sri Kembangan at 7:45 p.m. the following day.
15 minit selepas tangkapan itu, kita telah dibawa ke satu residensi di Sri Kembangan Dan situ kita telah dapat merampas lebih banyak dadah dan telah merampas satu Toyota Estima dan wang tunai lagi sebanyak RM53,800.
Among the drugs seized in the second raid include 680 grams of methamphetamine, over 150,000 Aramin 5 pills, 3.71 kilograms of ecstasy, more than 21 kilograms of methylene dioxymethamphetamine or MDMA powder, and 12.5 liters of MDMA liquid, as well as 100 ganja cigarettes, 8.92 kilograms of ketamine. Police also seized a Toyota Estima and 53,800 ringgit cash at the scene. The whole seizure is estimated to be worth 4.5 million ringgit, while the drugs are enough to cater for 195,480 drug users. Based on initial investigation, all the suspects have been actively distributing drugs in the Klang Valley since 2 months ago. The trio have been remanded for a week until Friday to facilitate investigations under the Dangerous Drugs Act. In Johor, a 16-year-old boy who was reported missing after rescuing his younger brother who fell into a ditch in Batu Pahat was found drowned on Wednesday. The body of Muhammad Nakiuddin Adnan was found at about 8:47 a.m., about 5 meters from where he had fallen at Jalan Taman Manis 6, Parit Raja. The victim was swept away by strong currents on Tuesday after he managed to save his sibling Muhammad Shamin. It was understood that the teenager and 5 other friends were swimming in the ditch when the incident occurred. Air Hitam Fire and Rescue Department Assistant Fire Superintendent Muhammad Shamin Muhammad Salikin said 11 firemen were involved in the search, which resumed on Wednesday. The department had used the surface searching technique over a distance of 1 kilometer from the spot the teenager was reported missing. The body was then handed over to the police for further action, and the search was called off at 8:50 a.m. Several Republicans to join Democrats in House vote to impeach Trump. There's some more stories from the foreign front after the breather. Onto the foreign front, the U.S. House of Representatives is poised to make Donald Trump the first president in United States history to be impeached for a second time on Wednesday, with a swift and bipartisan vote to condemn Trump's role in inciting the riots in the U.S. Capitol. As Democrats hold a majority in the House, the vote is likely to pass after at least a handful of Republicans, including the House's number 3 Republican, Liz Cheney, expected to back the impeachment. However, the number of Republicans who will ultimately vote for impeachment remains unclear. But so far, 5 Republicans have said they will vote to impeach Trump. The case will then head for the Senate, where a trial will be held to determine the president's guilt. Earlier, the House passed a resolution by 223 to 205 votes calling on Vice President Mike Pence to use the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office.
Request the yeas and nays. Pursuant to
Iran's Navy has officially inducted the country's largest military vessel into its fleet during a maritime missile drill at a time of heightened tensions with the United States over its nuclear program. The indigenously made forward-based ship Iris Makran, which is said to be able to carry up to 5 helicopters, joined the fleet with another ship that is capable of firing missiles. The 228-meter-long warship, previously an oil tanker, has been repurposed to provide logistical support, carry out search and rescue missions, deploy special forces, replenish and transport supplies, offer medical assistance, as well as acting as a base for fast boats. The troops are also expected to test out missiles from submarines and deploy unmanned aerial vehicles as part of the 2-day drill being conducted in the Sea of Oman. The U.S. and its regional allies, particularly Saudi Arabia and Israel, have long seen Iran's missile program as a security threat, with fears that Tehran might use its long-range missiles to carry nuclear warheads. In other news, Indonesia launched one of the world's biggest COVID-19 vaccination campaigns on Wednesday, with its President Jokowi getting the first shot of the Sinovac vaccine as his country fights one of the worst coronavirus outbreaks in Asia. Joko, better known as Jokowi, received the jab at the Presidential Palace in Jakarta in an event that was broadcast live on national television. Speaking after the event, Jokowi said the vaccination is important to break the chain of coronavirus transmission and provide health, safety and protection for all Indonesians, adding that it would also help to boost the economy. He also reminded Indonesians to continue observing health protocols even with the vaccine rollout. And now let's take a look at the highlights in Malaysia's main newspapers for Thursday, January 14th. The New Straits Times and Harian Metro focus on the implementation of the Movement Control Order 2.0 to flatten the COVID-19 curve. Berita Harian, meanwhile, highlights on the offer by 146 private hospitals to treat COVID patients. And the cancellation of a proposed merger talks between EcoWorld and UEM Sunrise takes the front page of the Malaysian Reserve. Don't forget to get your copies or subscribe to the online newspaper. And that's it for Nightline. As we wrap, we leave you with the breathtaking visuals of the French Alps that were filmed by a local skydiver using his GoPro as he flew over the series of mountain peaks in a wingsuit. I'm Norzie. Thank you for tuning in and take care.